Hello, how are you? My name is Nelson George. I'm an author, filmmaker, and writer, and it's my honor to be here tonight for the Red Bull Music Academy, about to speak to one of the most influential, sometimes controversial, and definitely profound artists of our era. Please welcome D'Angelo. Let's start talking about guitar playing. Here you go.
What's up, Brooklyn? How y'all doing? Peace and love.
One of the big changes from the D'Angelo people were familiar with from before to where you are now musically is you've added guitar to your music. You became a guitar player. To talk about how that happened and how that's affected what you do.
Well, I played guitar before. I was playing a little bit on Voodoo. A couple of songs, left and right, and some songs. But I think during the Voodoo recording the album, we had Electric Lady. So, Jimi Hendrix was a big influence and just a big spirit in the place, in the building. And I've always wanted to, I feel like my style on piano, because piano is my main instrument, so I feel like I always wanted to, on piano, I was always emulating the guitar and bass. I play bass, but I didn't play much guitar. I played a lot of keyboards, but I really wanted to produce the sound that was in my head, that I was trying to emulate on the keys. I wanted to do it for real, and it makes me look at the keys in a different way. So it's like I'm looking at the guitar and bass more like meat and potatoes, and keys like coloring over top of it, you know? So, I mean, I guess that's where I'm at right now.
Well, Jesse Johnson played a role in this, though, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Yes.
Those who know Jesse Johnson, guitar player with the time, solo artist in his own right. Oh, I'm sorry, okay. Before we go further, please, no photography, thank you! No phone pictures. Some big ugly man may come and look for you if you have them. So just be aware that that's prohibited, as we were saying. Jesse Johnson.
Yes, Jesse. Shortly after Voodoo, I got in touch with Jesse through John McClain, and actually through Alan Leeds. And just the instant kinship, you know, and when I first talked to him on the telephone, and we talked for years on the telephone before we actually met, I was just struck. I even had to say it to him. I was like, man, you sound just like my brother. Like, his voice and his vernacular, he sounds just like my oldest brother, Luther. So I just really felt like a kinship with him. We finally met at Raphael's studio in Cali, in Blakesley. And he came through, and first thing he did was gave me a couple of guitars. Gave me a Minerick, the black Minerick that I play now, and he gave me one of his guitars.
You have a pink one, right?
Yes, that was one of his. He's actually holding it on the Shockadelic album, the pink Fender Invader. So
how did that working with him, how does that begin to evolve your playing? How did that affect how you?
I mean, obviously, I'm sitting with him shedding, you know, and like we went out and did a couple of shows in Europe, and you know, before then, you know, just sitting with him, he's showing me things and asking him questions and asking him about, you know, just everything. Prince.
Yeah, Prince questions, I'm sure.
Right. I mean, you know, it gets a little hairy because the time and the Prince, that feud was very real. But, you know, there's no love lost. He still speaks with a high love and respect for Prince. And you know, I'm just like a sponge, you know, just trying to soak everything in.
So I saw the tapes of your tour in Europe, and then I've seen you play here in the States. And it does seem like what you're doing now and where you're going musically for the future, the guitar and the idea of that, it's much more prominent. Like I feel more rock and more funk in what you're doing now.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's a natural progression for me, but honestly, I just feel like that's where it's going. The thing with me is about rock and all that. I don't know, years and years of crate digging, listening to old music, you kind of start to connect the dots. And I was seeing the thread that was connecting everything together, which is pretty much the blues. And everything, soul or funk, kind of starts with that. That's kind of like the nucleus of everything, the thread that holds everything together. And so it's kind of just a natural progression.
It was interesting. I remember seeing you open for Mary J. Blige, maybe it was a year ago, a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And it was interesting dichotomy in the audience. And that there's the music you played on piano that was familiar, and that was like the Mary J. Blige crowd particularly, because that's an adult black crowd.
Yes.
Was into. And then there was where you're going now. You're going in a much, I would say, funk rock direction maybe, or something like that.
Funk
and
rock.
So I think one of the things that's going to be interesting as we go forward with your music is there's a transition that's happened in you creatively that the audience is going to have to be prepared for.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I think so. A couple of shows that we did. We opened up for Mary, and we did Essence Festival.
Right.
We did
Well, BET Awards.
I did the BET Awards, right? But we did a Sinbad thing.
Right.
In Aruba.
Oh, you did the boat ride?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or something like that. I don't know.
Oh, the tour.
So it's a lot of like, you know, R&B, soul thing, you know, going on, which is great. But definitely we're looking to the future here. And I don't know if people were really expecting what they got from us, because we did a lot of new material, and, you know, I think there was a lot of like kind of confused look on certain people's faces, and then in other people's faces, they were really receiving what we were doing. But I love that. I love if it's confusing at first, that's a good thing for me. That's a good sign.
Yeah, from what I got, you wouldn't necessarily want to. Where you're going now is where you are, and you were not like I'm necessarily having to. You don't want to be a nostalgia act, I guess, in a sense, what I'm saying. That you're looking forward. I remember when you played Bonnaroo with the Roots.
Yes.
You were doing. She came in through the bathroom window. You did some Beatles covers.
Yes.
I think that was pretty radical. People weren't expecting that. Is that? I mean, the Beatles. Is that? As we look forward, is that what we're going to be hearing more of? That kind of.
There's a huge influence. I don't know who is not influenced by them, and the thing about them, and they were the masters of, were, and I say Prince too. I love how Prince would do it. How all these interesting, different, you know, eccentric ideas, but they were able to fit it. And, a simple pop format that could be considered formulaic or whatever, but to be able to fit all of that and your vision and whatever into this simple format, whether it be a pop song or it's a 12-bar blues or whatever, I think that's the challenge, and they were the best at it. They were the best.
One of the things interesting too, you had, everyone remembers Soul Aquarian? Was that how we pronounced it?
Soul Aquarian.
And your band now, you call them the Vanguard.
Yes.
What is the Vanguard, and tell me about what that represents for your music?
It's, Vanguard is definitely an evolution. My last band being the Soultronics, and the Soul Aquarians was, I guess, the collective of all of us. And, but yeah, the Vanguard is just the progression of that. And we're not the Soultronics. It's a different band, and I think it's a louder band, it's a harder band, it's more guitars, definitely, so it's definitely more rock,
You had when you played with Mary, you had a lot of literature. I remember asking you, like, where'd you find these musicians? And you said you found them in the church. A lot of the younger guys were...
Yeah, the younger guys, yeah, definitely.
So that still is a mother lode where you find the great black musicians.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing about the church is, what I learned early, they used to say this when I was going to church. They used to say, don't go up there for no form or fashion. So I guess what that means is, listen, we up here singing for the Lord, so don't be up here trying to be cute, because we don't care about all that. We just want to feel what and what the Spirit is moving through you. And it's the best place to learn that, so you shut yourself down and you let whatever's come through you. And the guys that were singing with me, the Lumsey brothers.
Lumsey brothers, right.
Yeah, one of them I met in Richmond. I put a little quartet gospel group together, and he was playing drums. So I brought him along, and he brought his cousins, who came up in the quartet tradition. And
it's interesting because the quartet tradition, it's like a dying art form.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is.
I don't know the last time there was a significant young black harmony group. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
So, so you found most of these guys in Richmond. A lot of the younger guys.
The younger guys, yeah.
So let's talk about Richmond, Virginia. Not a place.
Richmond in the house. What's up?
Richmond, Virginia is not seen as a musical hotbed. However,
yeah.
Come on, explain it. Tell me about it.
It's not, because I don't know how many. There are not really a lot of cats from there that made it really big. I mean, y'all know of Major Harris.
Love Won't Let Me Wait. Anybody?
Won't Let Me Wait.
Soul music fans in the house.
The Delphonics. He's definitely from Richmond, and I mean, there's a couple of motherfuckers, but not really. You know what? Was nothing down there. And the funny thing about it is that it was all this talent. It's like mad talent down there. Like, when I was coming up, when I was little, my whole thing was I wanted to just be big enough to be in a band, because they used to have Battle of the Bands all the time down there, and it was a big deal, and it was a whole bunch of local talent, but nobody never really crossed that threshold.
Also, you were telling me there's a rock tradition there that people don't know about. I don't think about Richmond. What bands are you talking about?
Wow. Well, yeah, it's a big punk scene in Richmond. Always has been. DC area and Richmond, big time, and a lot of heavy metal heads in Richmond. Where I was where I had to move when I started going to high school. I moved from Richmond to, there's a county outside of Richmond called Chesterfield. But that's where Lamb of God, that's where they're from. Slipknot, they're from Chesterfield. So it's a big rock scene down there, big time.
So in the past, you've talked a lot about your church background, but I wanted to jump to another aspect of your development, which is a lot of people don't know that you were in a hip-hop band, hip-hop group. And the group is pictured here. And it's called, the group was called IDU, Intelligent, Deadly, but Unique.
That's right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So talk about what you were doing at that particular point in your development.
I just moved from Richmond. I just moved from Richmond to Chesterfield, and that's when I was MCing back then. I was an MC. I was pretty fucking good too.
Now, listen. You don't say that if you're not going to bust a rhyme.
No. Hell no.
Okay. There are apparently some tracks floating around the internet of IDU somewhere.
IDU shit was for real, man. We weren't no joke, and it was IDU Productions, so we was a production crew, you know. What's all laughing?
So were you the hook singer?
At first. But I was really like co-producer, you know, that was the whole thing. When I moved from Richmond to Chesterfield, the first brothers I really hooked up with was the leader of the group, Brian Trent. And I was a freshman coming to high school, he was a senior. And the other producer for the group, we called him Baby Fro. His name was Ron Flowers. So he was the DJ. His father DJ'd for years and years and years. And so like his house was like a record store. And those records were kept in like pristine condition. And we'd be over there all day. That's where I really like went to school. Like that was like hip hop and music 101 for me. It's the first time I learned about the Meters and Band of Gypsies and all of that shit. And then, you know, when you're listening to records strictly to find samples, looking for break beats. And then I stopped listening to records for break beats, and instead of just skimming through it looking for a break beat, I'm listening to the whole record, you know what I mean? And so that's when that started.
So is that your musical, obviously you had church training, but this was one of your key musical educations in terms of sweep of music.
Yes, you know, up until that point, I mean, I rhymed, and, you know, but my main musical love was Prince. That was it. Yeah. Learning, I mean, that's when, I mean, I started to learn about Marley Marl and all those cats, and it just opened my whole world up, really.
It's an interesting story because this band, IDU, they ended up coming to New York trying to get a deal.
That's right.
And the story goes that people would go, it's all right. Who produced the track? that people were already seeing in these tracks that you made early on with this band, that there was something there. And Jocelyn Cooper, who ended up...
Hi, Jocelyn.
Jocelyn Cooper, who was then, who now helps run the Afro-Punk Festival. Mm-hmm. But then was worked in a music publishing company, Warner Chappell, right? Okay.
Midnight Music.
Midnight Music. Excuse me. that you came up to. She tells a story about you coming in, and you played.
I walked in with a suit. I had a two-piece. We were walking in Manhattan, and we just came from Norfolk, and I just knew that this was the shot. This was my shot, and I was hell bent on getting the suit. I wanted to walk in there with a suit. Well, bought brand new church shoes and shit, and never walked the streets of Manhattan before. Got to the office and I met Jocelyn Cooper, who was just like most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. And it's true. And was, whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop and all that. Where's your bathroom? Can I go to the bathroom for a second, please? And I know they kept wondering why I kept going to the bathroom, because I had to take those shoes off, man. My feet fucking killing me. But, that's where it started. I sat there, I played, I was just like a jukebox, and then they would name out a song, and I'd play it and sing it.
Well, she says you played a Jodeci, Jocelyn, if I'm wrong, correct me. You played a Jodeci song, you played a gospel song, and you played a Miles Davis song.
That's right.
So what I go back to is, how old are you at this point?
I was 17.
So the range of music that you had some access to is, for a 17-year-old from Richmond, Virginia, it's pretty impressive. Okay. Did that go back to, is that the DJ thing, that you were able to expand your horizon through that?
Not really. I've been playing piano since I was 3. And I'd always wanted to just get some more jazz chops. You know what? I studied for 2 years when I was 12 or 13, classical music. The classical teacher that I was with, she kind of got hip to me because she would play the song once and I'd come back the next week and play it no perfect. But I still wasn't really reading. And when she got hip to the fact that my ear was that good, she's like, well, I'm going to send you to this guy named Russell somebody who worked at VCU, and he taught music theory. So I went to the guy, Russell, and took a music theory class. And, he was like, I can't do nothing with you. You don't need theory. You already know theory. You already know it. So I'm going to pass you to this guy at VCU in Virginia, who still taught at VCU. It was Ellis Marcellus,
wow,
Winton's father,
wow,
who was still teaching at VCU. And I went and auditioned for Ellis Marcellus. And James Moody, matter of fact, James Moody was up there, and I was 13, 14, and got on the piano and I played an Anita Baker song, because it was the jazziest song I could think of. And so I played Anita Baker, and they were impressed, and it's like, oh, that's good, young blood. And wow, I was like, so are you gonna teach me? Do I get to, He's like, nah, I'm getting ready to leave. So he's getting ready to leave that year and go teach back in New Orleans. So I never got a chance to really get any jazz training or what have you like that. But I always felt like that was a good thing that I didn't.
Why?
Because it would have changed my whole style. It would have changed my whole style of playing. That's what it meant to be, I guess.
Yeah, I want to talk. There's another band that you were involved in that I wanted to get at, because in researching for this interview, I learned a bunch of stuff I hadn't really been aware of. So after Intelligent, Deadly, but Unique, you then...
Yeah.
You had another band, which was Michael Archer Imprecise.
That's right.
So this is after,
It's before. It's before
okay.
I actually. precise.
So you guys, I mean, what I didn't know is that you actually won Apollo Amateur Night a couple of times.
Yes, I did. We used to do a lot of gigs, a lot of shows, not gigs, but shows, talent shows, you know, whatever, in Richmond. And it was this big talent show they used to have every year. It was huge for the high school kids and shit. And there was a school that was in North Side. I'm from South Side, so then there's North Side. Anybody know anything about Virginia? North Side and South Side do not get along. Like, it's always been beef, right? Even if it's playful. But anyway, all the great kids and all the great talent went to this one school, Kennedy High School. They had a great musical director there. And they would have this big talent show that they would have every year and they would have it at the mosque. Like, that was the mosque in Richmond. Like, you know, everyone performed at the mosque. So it was a huge deal. They would sell tickets and everything. The place would be fucking packed. And I did the talent show, I guess, 2 years before. But this one year, I got everything together. We got the precise together. We went there. And we tore the roof off, man, really. I was what? I was 16. I was 16. And we tore the roof off. And from there, I got a chance to go to Apollo.
What was precise? Was it how many pieces? What kind of group was it?
It was me and my cousin, Marlon, who played drums. My other cousin, Regina, who was on keyboards. I had my other cousin singing background.
The family band, in other words.
Almost. and then I had two other background singers. They were both named Nikki. Nikki T, Nikki C.
So was that your first trip to New York, the Apollo gig?
That was my first trip.
Tell me about that experience of going up, you're 16, you amateur night at the Apollo from Virginia. How was that?
It was surreal. It was amazing. And the first time I went, it was sponsored by this whole thing called Kemet Productions. So we would get in a bus from Richmond and get on the highway, and there would be a whole bunch of talent on the bus, whatever. And so the people that were in charge, like, I mean, you know, they were kind of trying to tell everybody what to do. You should sing this song. You should sing a Luther Vandross song. You have a Luther Vandross type of tone, or you should, you know, don't sing a gospel song, they'll boo you, you know, type shit like that. And, you know, I had my mind set on singing People Bryson. I was like, I'm singing People Bryson. And, and they were like, don't sing that song, please don't sing that song. They're gonna boo you off the stage. And they had me at the last minute, I was trying to like switch the song up. Anyway, long story short, you know, I rubbed the log or whatever, and the girl that goes out right before me sings a gospel song, right? A gospel song. And they booed the shit out of her, man. There was no sympathy. They was so cold-blooded. And she walked off the stage crying. All right, young bud, you're next. Rub the log. All right, and the MC comes out. It's like, yeah, so we got this kid. He's from way down, deep down south. Boo, boo. Like, I didn't even walk out on the stage. Long story short, I won them over, and, you know, I placed, and then I got the opportunity to come back. When I came back, I did my own background music. I did my own background vocals. I was like, no, I'm not doing no Luther Vandross or nothing. I'm gonna do some up-tempo shit and, you know, whatever. I won first place.
What song, you did, original song of yours, or was it a?
Nah, I did Rub You the Right Way by Johnny Gill.
You know, one of the interesting things about your career speaking of, is that you've been really great at interpreting classic material, soul music. And part of the reason I think you attracted so many people to you was that you were a connection to that past. You've had many interesting collaborators. And one of the ones that probably people don't know about, actually, a person who was actually a mentor to me as well, the great Mtume.
Yes, sir.
Mtume's pedigree is pretty long. Just break it down. He played with Miles during his Electric period.
Absolutely.
He went on to become one of the top singer-songwriters, wrote all of Stephanie Mills' hits, Roberta Flack hits, and then had
solo success, Juicy Fruit.
Usually one of the most sampled records in hip-hop history. So,
right.
as also in a super political person, was on Kiss Radio for years doing morning shows. So a very diverse and powerful man. And he helped you produce this track, didn't he?
Well, yeah, he did. He produced the song for Get on the Bus soundtrack. And I think, yeah, he was doing like a lot of those dope covers at that time. He had just did...
New York Undercover. He was the song guy from New York Undercover who did all those covers in the show.
And he had just did the cover of Bobby Womack's... If you think you're lonely now, right? For KC,
right? KC, right?
Yeah. So
you talked about. I know we're name checking Jocelyn a lot here, but she gets name checked again. That he was doing sort of music. You told me a story about he was doing music or songwriting seminars.
Well, yeah, he was involved with Midnight Songs, definitely, and Jocelyn would have these workshops. So all of the writers on her roster would come to the workshop, and James Mtume would, really be holding court, and he would literally have like a chalkboard or, something, really be going through it, talking about songwriting and song structure, theory, whatever, blah, 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 blah.
But you weren't the best student, I hear.
Jocelyn, gotta tell you that one. Jocelyn, she used to always be mad at me because I never would come. I never would come to the music shops. You ought to come, blah, blah, blah.
But you finally did show up one time.
Yeah, I did come. I was jamming because I wanted to jam with Rob Bacon, who was, folk guitar player from Detroit. And but Mtume was awesome. He was one of those cats in the early days that really, really gave me a lot of confidence and let me know that I could do it, And I remember at the end of recording Brown Sugar, I don't know, I had like a mental block where I couldn't finish. I couldn't nail this line on Lady. And then there was this line on Cruising that I couldn't nail. And Mtume was at the studio when I did those vocals and kind of coached me through it, And he's just a great guy, man. He's
Absolutely.
Great. Yeah.
Speaking of collaborators and mentors and that combination, one of the people you're most associated with, is Questlove from The Roots. I don't think I need to introduce him. Questlove. You did these shows. I saw this show at Brooklyn Bowl you did maybe a year ago, whatever, where you guys, it's just the two of you on stage. And to me, it was a beautiful experience musically and the chemistry you guys had together. Talk about how you guys met and the musical bond you guys share.
I call him Amir. He's always going to be Amir to me. He's Questlove, but that's Amir. That's my brother. And I met him shortly after Brown Sugar came out. I think I had just stopped touring for a second, and they was doing a show at the House of Blues. They were opening for the Fugees. So it was Goody Mob, The Roots, and the Fugees. And so, you know, CeeLo's there killing, and then here come the Roots. And that was the first time I'd seen them live, and you know, I just got off the road, and I was pretty bummed out because the drummer that I wanted, who was the house drummer at the Apollo, Ralph Rowe.
Oh, Ralph Rowe, sure.
Yeah, I wanted. He was my drummer for the first couple of shows, and then he didn't want to tour. So I was bummed out for the rest of the shows. I feel like I just did not have the drummer that I wanted, and I was in search for a drummer. I went through a whole bunch of drummers during that time. Abe Fogle was one of my drummers. Omar Hakim, who was with Weather Report, he was one of my drummers at the time. And I just couldn't find it. So anyway, at the show, seeing Amir, he knew I was there. I don't know how. I knew. Where are you at, man? So he always tells this story. You should tell a story because you tell it better than I do.
Okay, at the risk of overexposure, because I know people are tired of hearing me talking, I promise to keep this under 2 minutes. I had met, you had first walked in when the Roots were mixing our Do You Want More record, and Bob at Battery Studios, and engineer Bob Power, who was working on the Brown Sugar record, was like, yo, you gotta meet this kid. He's the next, you know, he named he's the next Sam Cooke, he's the next Donny Hathaway, he's the next, you know, and I had such a Nazi attitude towards like R&B at that time, you know. I just thought, whatever. And he walked in, and I was dismissive. I was like, yeah, whatever. And Bob was like, no, there's a song called Shit Damn Motherfucker. You gotta play on it. And I was, you know, and I was so dismissed. You know, he came in. I look, it's an R&B dude. Never mind, I'm cool. And so I had gotten the Brown Sugar sampler when I left the Source Awards, the second Source Awards. That one where Suge Knight was like, all in the video, all in the. I always consider that day to be hip hop's funeral. And the only saving grace was, so at the time when Snoop is on stage yelling, y'all don't love us, y'all don't. I grabbed my day, I was like, yo, we out. Because I knew it was going to be like a war going on. So I ran in the lobby, and as I was running, some guy just ran up to me and says, here. And I looked, and it's D'Angelo Brown Sugar. I put it in my pocket, and I ran out like. And I don't know what made me do it, but I listened to it, and I thought, I done fucked up now. Like, I did. I thought, like, yo, this is our savior. Like, I knew. So I basically spent. That was May of '95. So I spent the entire year trying to figure out how to strategically get within his sight so that I can atone for my sins of being dismissive that day. And that moment came April 1st, 1996. So it was April Fool's Day, Marvin Gaye Day. You and Eric, you had just met Erica that day, right? No, we didn't. Well, you knew of her. We were there together, yeah. Right. So y'all recorded the duet that Heaven Must Have Sent You, right? Y'all recorded that earlier at Marvin's studio. And that night, both of y'all came to the House of Blues. So I met both of y'all the same night. And I knew he was in the audience. And I thought, okay, I can either sabotage our show right now. Like, either I can audition for him or I can make it smooth running. Because I'm not saying there's a band rivalry going on between the three, but it's like we were all trying to kill each other. I mean, in that Kendrick Lamar rivalry way, like, you know, by this point, we're in LA, Soul Train Awards, everybody's in the house. You see TLC up there. You see like all these notable celebrities, and the Roots could have either stuck to the script, or it was such a moment. I thought I got to audition for him. And in auditioning for D'Angelo, I decided to play in a style that the Roots were not accustomed to. Huh. So the sort of the preview of that drunken Dilla style that like we perfected for Voodoo, like I thought, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. And everyone's looking at me like, what are you doing? Why are you playing so? And so there was this moment where I was like, I don't have him yet. And I decided to do, there's a song, there's a side Prince project called Madhouse.
Madhouse, right.
There's an introductory song called Four. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna see what language he speaks. It was some African communication drum thing. And I did it. And he instantly, he's like, yeah! Like he just, that's how I met him.
True story, true story.
Well, I think I'll move ahead. I was going to do this later, but let's talk about Voodoo. And I mean, since he's in the house, we should. One of the things that a lot of people think is that Questlove produced Voodoo. Mm. Okay. I know. That's what we're doing here. But a lot of people do think that, by the way. So I guess the question I have for you, I want to talk a little bit about the creative genesis of that album. I know one of you talked about, I mean, we were talking earlier about Roy Hargrove played a key role in, talk about the genesis of that album.
Well, wow. Me and Amir met after that night. They were doing, y'all doing Philadelphia Half-Life. And, the last song on the Roots album was the first song on the Voodoo album. Yes, yes. Hypnotic.
Since for those who didn't hear, and the people who are listening online, what Amir just said is that the last cut on the Philadelphia album
went into the first cut of the Voodoo.
And what does that mean?
What does it mean?
Yeah, what does it mean musically?
I don't know. I think what it means is that, it's like musical kin, and it's kind of like being separated at birth, and then y'all meet when you're 22, and you be like, damn, you my brother. That's basically what it was like. And I was doing Space Jam soundtrack. And so the concept of the song was the real NBA players against the monster motherfucker. Hence the basketball references in Play a Player. So that was the first song we did. We got together, we were at the Hit Factory. And we just was like nutting off, like two little kids in the toy store.
A landmark album. It's got the mood of it is really significantly different from your first album. Talk about the evolution from the first one to the second one.
Okay, just about the entirety of the first album, Brown Sugar. I wrote it, the majority of that record, in my bedroom in Richmond, and all of the demos for it were done on a 4-track in my bedroom. And I think EMI was a little leery of me being in the studio, producing it on my own, which is what I was fighting for. So it was important for them that I go in with someone, an engineer. Everyone was trying to pick, like, you should get Prince's engineer or somebody else, and I picked Bob Power because of my love for Tribe and what they were doing, and it was the best thing to do. And he was so awesome. He taught me a lot. All of the demos that I had, basically, before we even set foot in the studio, we were at Bob Power's house for like 3 months, like going over every detail, like tweaking every hi-hat, every cymbal, you name it. And so when we went into the studio to record, I mean, it was really like in my opinion, I felt like after it was done, I loved it, but there were certain songs that I felt it lost something between the demo version and all of the production that went into it. I felt like it lost, like it got a little homogenized, in my opinion, for me at the time.
You mean just sonically it was too clean? You're a little dirty?
Not clean, but I wouldn't use the word clean, but what's the word? Buttery? I think that's the best. Yeah, buttery.
So you were looking to you wanted to eliminate the margarine and the butter.
There you go. So I was like, yeah, straight from the cow to the glass, you know. And that's what Voodoo was. It really was that. We were in the studio, and I wanted everything to feel like the demo. I wanted everything to feel like the demo. So that was the first thing. And then it was more working with musicians. We were doing a lot of, me and Amir would be in there just really, like I said, nutting off like kids. And for hours, and we would just keep the tape rolling. And we'd be in that live room with absolutely really no intent of writing or recording anything. We would just be playing. We'd be playing for hours. The whole time the tape is rolling. And then something would come up, we would doodle, and then Amir would go, whoa, what's that? Yo, Russ, rewind the tape. So Russ Elevado would rewind it, and we listen to it again, and boom, there's a new song. And then, a lot of it was one take. You know what I mean? We would go in there. So that was a different thing from Brown Sugar. That was, because I was doing everything myself at first, and then it was. So for me, I think it was 3 major elements. Amir being there. I think after me and Amir did Player, I did a duet with B.B. King. Right. And I brought Amir with me to the session because it was my intention of doing a cover of, Johnny Guitar Watson had just died. Uh-huh. He had just died right before the B.B. King session, and it was my intention to do a cover of Superman Lover. So I brought Amir with me, and we get there and we can't do Johnny Guitar Watson because they have to be B.B. King songs. But I was in search. I was desperately seeking a James Jamerson aficionado, like a James Jamerson. I even sought out his son, James Jamerson Jr., and I was looking for someone who could really give me that. And boom, I found him at the B.B. King session, Pino Palladino. That and from the Brown Sugar days, I'd always been dying. We had a mutual friend who kind of turned me on to his music, and I used to listen to it a lot, and I just loved his tone, and been dying to work with Roy Hargrove. And we reached out, and so those elements, I think those elements right there, that was it, man. That was the recipe.
Yeah, Pino Palladino, he's been with you ever since. He's still.
Yes, he is. Yes.
It's interesting. So how do you work? I mean, obviously, me and you guys have this bond. How do you? Because you play so many instruments, I'm really curious how you weave in other musicians, and how do you? Because you said a certain way you want to play it. Do you have them play exactly what you played? How much are they able to put themselves in?
They follow? Yeah, I'll set the I guess structure or what have you, whatever, however you want to call it. And we follow that to a certain degree, but I do give them license to interpret it, you know, and do what you want. I mean, when you're working with musicians of that caliber, I mean, you can trust them to interpret it anyway. Like Roy, I would just play it for Roy and let him just do what he does, and he would make the arrangements, do the horn arrangements. I mean, all right there. Like, he's incredible. He's fucking incredible, man. And Pino pretty much would follow what I wrote, you know, for the structure of the song, and then, you know, add his own interpretations in it, you know.
Speaking of the blues, and it seems to me that one of the tracks that really is powerful from that era with you is Devil's Pie. And we talked about Devil's Pie. It's a blues song to you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of like a blues song. Well, I would say, I mean, the spirit of the vocals was more like a chain gang, or like a field of slaves. Of field slaves in the field, picking whatever the fuck Master had us picking. And that's what we be singing while we be picking in the hot fucking sun. I mean, that's kind of where I was going with it.
So we had a Twitter Ask D'Angelo, and here's a question from Sheer Kambur. Okay. Just learned you wrote Black Men Unite's anthem, You Will Know. What's the story on that? And just as a couple of fun little things, there's a picture we're going to drop in later of, this is the R, Kelly, D'Angelo, and Brian McKnight, a very unlikely trio. And the sheet music from You Will Know, which was written by you and your brother Luther.
That's right.
So let's talk about that track.
Again, in the crib, it was, that song really is what got me my deal. That was on my first demo when Jocelyn signed me to Midnight Music. I think that was the one. That was the song that sealed the deal.
How did it end up being It ended up being a soundtrack for Jason's lyric as opposed to being a solo track for you. How did that happen?
Well, it was, you know, it was early, and like I said, it was my original demo. It takes time to get signed and all the process and all that stuff. So by the time I gotten signed to EMI, just the direction I was going was just different. And so it was a perfect fit. Jocelyn being, you know, the great publisher that she was, she placed it for the movie. And it was like, wow, it's like, I'm coming out of nowhere, because the only thing that I had done up to that point was a song called Overjoyed for the Harlem Boys Choir. And so here I am, you know, with all my heroes, man. So it was deep.
Talk about the talent that was on that track.
Man, So Brian McKnight, R. Kelly, Gerald Levert, I'll Be Sure, Boyz II Men, H-Town.
H-Town, knocking them boots.
Knocking the boots. It was everybody. It was
Usher,
like,
I think. Was Usher?
Young little Usher was there. I was like, this little kid gonna do something, man. Shit. Yeah, Aaron Hall. Did I say Aaron Hall?
Aaron Hall. You know, Aaron Hall is important.
Aaron Hall, who was like God to me. I fucking like loved Aaron Hall and everybody. Christopher Williams.
That's a whole era right there.
Right. It was crazy.
So you're in the studio now. You basically have all these vets, and you're the kid. How was that? How were those sessions?
They were fun. They were really, really fun. And everyone, it was Black Men United. So there was no, everybody kind of left their egos, well, some left their egos at the door. But I mean, for the most part, it was like it was surreal, you know. And I got a chance to not just work with, you know, a lot of my heroes, but, you know, grew, you know, relationships, especially with Aaron Hall was really cool. Like those brothers kind of like, you know, kind of put me up under their wing, kind of like, you know, come here, young blood, you know, watch out for this, da 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 da. Him and Gerald Levert were the like biggest ones, man. Gerald was just fucking awesome. Rest in peace, brother. I love that man.
You know, it's interesting listening to that track now and talk about longevity and mystique. I mean, there are people on that record who, Christopher Williams, who had a moment. He was a movie star and a singer. You know, he was in New Jack City. Al B, who's moved on and does radio. Having longevity and having mystique. You know, you're one of the few people who has mystique. You know that. I mean, like, in the age of TMZ and all the stuff, there's an aura still about your career. It's very unusual today for anybody to have any mystery left.
I agree.
You know, I feel like, so let's just take a couple more questions. This came in tonight on from Twitter. This is from Divine Thought. Are you a fan of how technology has changed the music industry? And I guess we could take it a number of ways. Technology in the studio or technology and how people consume music. How do you feel about the changes and how that affects how you go as you're going forward with your music?
The consumption of it, I can't even touch that. That's different. But as far as the technology, I don't have a problem with technology as long as it's not. It's got to be a balance. You know what I mean? So you can use technology, but still, if you're using technology to get the same point across that you would get, saying, doing the analog shit, then it's cool. I don't have a problem with it at all.
Is there any auto-tune tracks you're working on?
No. No. Although it's funny, I met Sly recently, and he was working on, Sly Stone, right? And, you know, I always hear the rumor mill that he's always constantly working on music.
That's what he says when you ask him.
And it's the truth. He's got like mad shit, man, that he's been working on.
Oh, he played you some stuff?
Yeah.
Oh!
And it's not Family Stone shit. It's progressive, it's new, and he's fucking with the auto-tune shit. But it's I remember I had a conversation with him, like, because I heard it. I was like, no, damn. No, don't do that. Why are you using auto-tune, you know? And he was explaining to him, but the way he did it, he's doing it like no one else would. I mean, of course, it's Sly, right? But like I said, like I don't have a problem with technology as long as you're doing something with it that's new, you know what I mean? It's just putting some kind of twist with it. But he's incredible, man. He's incredible.
All right, so when's the Sly D'Angelo duet?
It's coming. Sly, you promised, so.
We can talk a little bit more about, we just talk about your future. I mean, you know, always there's all kinds of anticipation. What are your thoughts about dealing with that? I mean, you know, there's a tremendous amount of like social media pressure that didn't exist before.
Right.
You know, how is that? Does that affect your process at all? The fact that people are getting at you all the time. Are you able to stay back from that?
I to a fault, I think that I kind of put myself in a bubble so that I'm not affected by any of that. Although it's hard not to be, because it's just the world that we live in now. But I mean, I completely kind of like block all that shit out. I have to, you know, because when I'm thinking about music, when I'm being creative, I can't even put my mind there.
I mean, I visited the studio you work in, and you have a cave. You literally sing in a cave.
Yes, I do.
It's
a little teepee.
It's a black tarp, and then you have like a humidifier, a keyboard,
yeah,
and that's more or less it, and an ashtray.
And an ashtray.
Talk about that, because you're even in the studio, which is itself an enclosed environment. You have even another enclosed environment. What is that? Talk about that.
I don't know. It's like I'm just trying to go deep in the onion. I'm just kind of tired of, I get tired of kicking everybody out the room. Because it's time for me to do vocals, I'll kick the engineer out, the assistant, and everybody, like, get out, you know, and I'll set the board myself, and I'll have the mic there. And so what we've been doing now, you know, Russ will be in the control room mixing, and I'll be in the live room when we set up the cave in the live room. But you know, that's how Sly used to do it. Mm-hmm. You know, he would sit at. That's one of the things that M2 Mate taught me too about Sly. And M2 Mate was talking about how Sly would use this thing called the dead zone, right? And so Sly wouldn't even use headphones. You know, he would sit at the board with the mic, and he'd position the mic a certain way in between the speakers, and there's a dead zone. And so he wouldn't even put on headphones. And that's why when you listen to some of that stuff, there's a lot going on. Mm-hmm. You hear a lot of hiss and a lot of stuff in there, but that's what that is, you know. But I kind of borrowed that from him, you know.
Well, talk about, I mean, your vocals are part of your trademark, and your falsetto, harmonies. Talk about the process of recording. I mean, because it seems like seems like a very sacred process. You have a cave. I mean, you know, you're not someone who's have a bunch of people in the studio. It's not a party when you record. What is your thoughts about that? Why do you go in that direction? Is it just, you say, the onion? You're trying to get in deeper?
It's the onion, yeah. But you know, you're putting your voice down on tape, because I still use tape, and you know, it's about capturing the spirit. It's about capturing the vibe. And I learned, we all learned a lot working on Voodoo. And that was such a great time. And I'm kind of a first take dude. Mm-hmm. So first time I cut that mic on and the spirit is there, and what comes on the mic, I mean, even if I'm mumbling, I like to keep a lot of that initial thing that comes out, you know, because that's the spirit.
Do you, I mean, I've heard some vocalists go in and they have a melody, they won't have the lyrics. And they're just like the famous, I think, Paul McCartney, I think, Yesterday was originally Scrambled Eggs or whatever, until he figured out what the words would be. Wow. Do you go in with the words or the emotion? I mean, which goes first?
It's kind of like that, yeah, emotions, yeah. And freestyle, you freestyle and mumble shit, and then later, you know, just fill in the blanks and make sense out of the mumbles. Yeah.
So we're coming to the end of our evening, and I want to talk a little bit about the future, and just from what I've seen of the shows you've been doing over the last couple of years, you know, obviously you've evolved. It's not the same D'Angelo that people might have seen before. where do you see yourself going musically? Is it going to be like? I mean, because one of the things that was interesting about the shows at the Brooklyn Bowl, for example, it was a completely different audience than I'd seen you with before. It was a younger audience, way younger. It was a wider audience than I think people would expect. Do you feel like your future recordings will have a different kind of audience base than even perhaps what you had before, because you're in a different place?
Different. I don't know about. Well, I just feel like it's expanding.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the music itself is expanding. So, yeah. I mean, I think that this is it's just a different generation. Everybody call it the iPod nation or what have you. But I think, you know, there's less segregation, if you will, of genres. I think, you know, more people are you know, welcome to, you don't give a fuck if it's called this or that. If it's good, it's good. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
So that's what it's like.
I think, are we through?
I don't know, man. Nah, it's
Okay, let's a couple more questions from the audience. Oh, this is a good one. If you were not a musician, this is from R. Barnes at 1Tim6, at 1Tim6. If you're not a musician, what would you be?
God damn. I'm scared to say it, but you know what? Because everybody back home always thinks that this is what I'm going to do, that I'm going to take the Al Green route. I don't see it, but I don't know. I think that...
You're going to join the family business?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Is not going to be a church of D'Angelo in Richmond, outside of Richmond?
You know, I've always looked at when I'm on stage that the stage is my pulpit. And when we're on the music, I mean, when we're playing and we're getting the energy back and feeding it to the crowd, and that exchange is happening, that's my ministry. I always looked at it like that.
I mean, you grew up in your father was a Pentecostal preacher.
Yes.
You grew up in a very church environment. Is there ever a temptation? I mean, you said not a church, but you ever a temptation to go back and do, you know, Christian music?
I definitely want to do a quartet album, and I'm just
a gospel quartet.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I love quartet, and those guys are still. I'm still fascinated with that whole world, and like, you know, before the first European tour, you know, that's what I did in Richmond. You know, me, my cousin Marlon, dude that's in the Vanguard now, RL, my other cousin, we put together a quartet group, and I did a little surprise little thing at this church way up in the woods, and it was great, man. It was great. It was funny because you know, we was doing like some real deal quartet gospel. You know, like we did a song we did a couple of songs by the Jubes, Pilgrim Jubilees.
Right. Wow.
And
that's seriously going back.
Oh yeah. And then we ended it with this interpretation, so it went into this fishbone thing. It's funny. And I called Angelo Moore, I told him about it. And he was like, "You did what? What song?" I was like, it was no. It's on Give a Monkey a Brain. It's on that album.
Fishbone Fans.
The funk song. It's the propaganda joint. So that at the end when they go, stop, stop, da da down. So we was doing that. And like the church at first was really up and shit. And then when we went to that, like everybody said.
Hey, how much more time do we have, folks? No. Hey, Questlove, come back up here, man.
Quest.
Because I want to end this with a little, because he said something interesting when I interviewed him before about your process, and I'd like to get that. I think that would be a good way to end the evening. When I interviewed you for Finding the Funk, you talked about the ways in which playing with him affected and how he affected your drumming. I'd love for you to talk about that now.
Absolutely. If you listen to Dreamin' Eyes of Mine on Brown Sugar, you know, at the time, it's funny because the only person I ever heard describe this was when the time that we brought Lenny Kravitz in to play. And he said the same thing that I thought in the beginning. I was like, man, there's a discrepancy on the kick pattern. Like, it's really messed up. But I was kind of obsessed with just how sloppy the kick pattern sounded. And I hit a Bob Power. I was like, yo, why did y'all leave it like that? Like, it's so, boom, like, no one cared. Like, someone drunk was playing it. And he said, no, that's exactly how he wants it. I was like, really? So, which leads to what I was explaining was when D'Angelo, when he came down to Philadelphia to record on the Philadelphia Half-Life album, we had him there for 2 days, because normally, like, a song should take that long. No. But we literally knocked out the song on the Roots album in 7 hours. Like, his vocal process is, I've never seen anyone just so instantaneous. Like, it's like watching someone shoot like 10 half-court shots, not even looking at the ball. Like, that's how effortless it is. So we were done. And, you know, we had it down for 2 days, so he stayed in Philadelphia. And it was like, well, all right, let's mess around. And that's when I think we were testing each other to see each other's knowledge. But there was a song that he had initially planned for Brown Sugar called Bitch that, I know, right? You remember? Which was the most drunkest, past Jay Dilla drumming I ever heard. Programming. So if the pulse is this, the drum pattern was, but it was drunk, but it was perfect. And it just, like, I'd literally, like, you have to understand, like, being in a hip hop band in 1996, like, there was a lot of resistance.
Sure.
You know,
yeah.
it was still the era of the Chronic, Ready to Die by Biggie was happening. So it was like, you know, real hip hop was like, yo, if you ain't sampling, you know, you ain't doing nothing. So the Roots, I'd spent 4 years by that point, like, with a chip on my shoulder. Like, I am as meticulous and as quantized and as straight as 12 o'clock. Like, I'm a time machine. And he just basically came in and deprogrammed me. Like, I had a lot of pride in the fact that Premier or Q-Tip would come up and be like, yo, you're like a drum machine. Like, you're so straight. Right. And so I was playing like a metronome for him. He's like, nah, like, lay back a little bit. And
so I'd like to tell us about that. What does that philosophy of drumming come from? What were we trying to? Because you were trying to mess up my man.
No. See, that's the thing. I'm basically trying to emulate the great hip hop producers, and it's like, so if you're looking for a break, if you're looking for a sample, and this is before you had, I guess, the technology to speed up or slow down a sample without fucking with the tempo of it, right? And so you had a beat going, and you would put a sample over top of that beat, it wouldn't align perfectly unless you kind of would put it behind. You had to kind of play it a little bit before the beat started so that by the time you got to the end of the 4 bars, it would align. And in that way, everything was the drunk thing, like you're saying. You know, I mean, that's just me kind of trying to emulate Premier and Marley Marl, you know, my favorite hip-hop producers.
I gotta object. Like you were past that. I mean, I don't mean like you were past that level. Like when people program drums, I mean, you can either have the quantize option on. I'm assuming that some of you aren't musicians, so when you have it quantized on, you could take 12 shots of Patron, program something, and it fixes it for you. Whereas the only 2 human beings I know that never had the quantize option on was D'Angelo and Dilla. And like, so both of them single-handedly made me drop it. And you gotta understand, like the way that black musicianship was going, you had to be precise. It was about gospel chops. It was about how many drums you can hit per hour. And I'm in my prime, right. Finally getting a little light with the group, and then suddenly they want me to just strip down to gutter bucket levels. You know, on the whole Voodoo record, like I'm playing rim shot. I played snare on one song. Like, what? That's the time I feel like to make them love. So it's to me it was like being told to use the Force in Star Wars terms. Sure. Like, just trust me, just keep it in the pocket, be sloppy as hell, and it's gonna work. So I mean, it took me like a month to adjust to it, but
I have both of you here. Let's talk about Soul Aquarians and what that was. From both your points of view, what did that collective mean to you, and how do you think it's affected music going forward in any way, shape, or form? Want to jump on it? Either one.
I mean,
don't let him talk all the time. Thank you.
This is your thing, man.
Exactly. You start.
All right. To me, Soul Aquarians was definitely just a collective of like-minded individuals. I remember us being at Electric Lady. You know, I'd be downstairs, Amir would be in the room, and it was just like a hotbed. Like, everyone would stop by. You know, everyone knew we was there. So Erica would stop by, or she would be upstairs.
It's like high school.
Common would be down the hall.
Yeah, he had Studio A, Common had Studio B, and then up in C would be, you know, accessory. Yeah, either Mos or Kweli, or sometimes Bilal, or, you know. So at any given moment between 1997 and like 2001, 2002, like we literally just took over Electric Lady Studios. And I mean, at one point in '98, like it was like sleepovers. We would just sit, watch Soul Train all night, and figure out something, like see a trick that Al Green was doing, and then mostly it was like practicing for the show. It's like, what album can we make that we can do live for people, and then they'll be like, that was amazing, you know. So
the main premise was, it's not going to just be one group. It's not going to be one album that does this. It's going to be a movement. It's going to be all of us. So, I mean,
that was very conscious.
Yeah.
I guess I personally have figured out, at least from the root standpoint, that any success that ever has happened in music happened as a movement. You know, you think you like Stevie Wonder, but no, you like the Motown movement, and then who's he's associated with. I mean, everything that's had a success is associated with something.
Can we, before we close, can we grapple with neo soul and whether that's a valid phrase or was just some PR bullshit? Anybody? I think you want to talk on that.
I plead the fifth, really.
No, you know,
I'm not touching
this. I'll say this much: I'm not, Because I hate documentaries in which, like, you know, they'll coin a term, and then you see a bunch of people that are part of that movement kind of like disassociate themselves with it. I mean, you know, none of us, who came up, was it Kedar?
Kedar. Are you here, Kedar? He's here. Kedar?
Yo, this is your life. Like, everybody's in
Where
here.
are you, Kedar? Can you please stand up?
That's amazing. Everybody's here.
So he coined the phrase.
I think Kedar could coin the phrase. But I don't think.
Was it a valid? I have to look at the mic. Was this a valid phrase, or was it something that was bogus? How do you feel about it?
I never want to go on record disassociating myself from something or think I was above it, or, you know, because usually when people do that, they're really passive aggressively trying to say, well, I'm better than that person that you're associating me with. I think at the end of the day, it's like the individual collective have made their mark and their stamp in history. And more importantly, what I want him to understand, because the problem with the bubble thing is that sometimes you're unaware of the effects of it. And like, he's totally amazed at the fact when I bring him news of like the fact that Voodoo is still rippling. Like, the effects of it are rippling and spreading, and people are now, like, there's a whole nother audience that's into it. You know, when we did the Bonnaroo thing together a year and a half ago, you know, you saw the audience, it was like there's a new generation of people that are on it. So, you know, I don't think that's, you know, we weren't necessarily, card-carrying members with a flag on it, but I do think that, you know, it was definitely something in the air between 97 to like 2003. And then, you know, I don't think it's anything to scoff or yarn or disassociate yourself.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I don't think I want to disassociate or anything, and respect it for what it is and for what all that. But I will say this, that, you know, anytime you put a name on something, that you just put it in the box.
It's the end, right?
You put it in the box, right? So I think the main thing about the whole neo soul thing, not to put it down, or it was a bad thing or anything, but you want to be in a position where you can grow as an artist. You never want to, you know, be told, hey, well, you're not doing what you did on Brown Sugar. You know, like right now, we're going someplace else. And so, well, damn, you're a neo soul artist. Why don't you do neo soul? And I never claimed that. I never claimed I do neo soul. You know, I used to say, when I first came out, I used to always say, I do black music. I make black music. So.
And you also have to understand that when Voodoo came out, that was, at one point in history, that was a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. Like, it sounded, it's weird now because it's in our DNA, but when it came out, there were a lot of people that were like, whoa, what this sounds like an acid trip or something. Like, what are you guys doing? Now it sounds normal, especially compared to unmentionable, unspoken third record. And I think I just killed the interview. I'm sorry. Thank you.
So how we doing, guys, on time? All right, we've had a quorum, and we've decided we're finished. No. So, Amir Thompson?
Listen, before we end, I just want to thank all of y'all for coming and for showing your love and support. Really, it means so much. Thank you. From the heart.